Welcome to the Foundery, where leaders are forged daily. I'm your host, George Roberts. Welcome back, entrepreneurs. Today we have Savannah Arroyo, the Networth nurse and founder of Willow Investment Group. Welcome, Savannah.
Hi, yeah, thank you for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
Awesome. So, Savannah, tell us how you got your start in real estate.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to backtrack a little bit before that and kind of tell you how I got into nursing because it kind of tells into my whole brand, the Networth nurse. But I grew up in Sacramento. I went to Sacramento State University. I got my bachelor's degree in nursing, and I worked in a couple different specialties at a couple different hospitals. And then shortly after, I went back to school and got my master's degree in nursing leadership and administration. And that was really because I was just naturally taking on leadership positions and leadership roles in what I was doing in healthcare. So I went back to school, got that. And right now I've since transitioned down to Los Angeles, California. Right now I oversee multiple departments at a hospital down here in LA. And it was when I was on maternity leave at the beginning of 2020 that I was with my daughter and my husband and just thinking of ways that we could create some passive income. We wanted to generate multiple streams of income. I was now in a position where I was getting forced to go back to work because I needed a paycheck. And we just felt like there had to be a better way than stacking all our money up to our retirement accounts that we couldn't touch until we were 65. And so we stumbled upon real estate for obvious reasons. It's one of the best strategies out there to start growing your wealth. And we started investing in single family homes, but shortly after we quickly moved into multifamily syndications. And that's currently what we're doing right now.
Awesome. And so you say you did actually touch the IRA accounts, as I understand.
Yes, I did. So that was kind of one of the biggest hurdles when we started investing in real estate. We were like, where are we going to get the money to do this? Right. And so we started watching all the YouTube videos about, how to get started in real estate with no money, where can you get creative and financing? And so for us, it was really education and learning about all these different ways that we could tap into capital in our lives. It took talking to a really good lender who, at the beginning of COVID, everyone was refinancing. The rates were so low. And our lender was like, hey, do you know you have over $100,000 worth of equity in your home? And we're like, no, what's equity? Like, what can you do with this? Like, we literally had no idea the concept. And so he was like, you can take the money, you can, make updates to your home or invest it in other properties. And we're like, oh, that's exactly what we want to do. And so we learned the process through an extremely informative broker who was kind of explaining us and leading us along the way of how to take out a second mortgage on our home at a low interest rate, around 4%, and now invest it in real estate strategies that are giving us 15 to 20%. I mean, mathematically, it becomes a no-brainer. So that was kind of how we first got started, was tapping into our home equity. But since then, we've tapped into our IRA accounts. We've taken out loans through retirement. So we've gotten really creative on the financing piece. And it's helpful now when we talk to other investors and medical professionals, me specifically, who are looking to get started and don't think that they have the capital to start. It's really eye-opening to kind of explore the different areas or opportunities to tap into capital in their lives. So it's something that you just kind of have to educate yourself about, but the money is out there.
Great. And one of the things I love about your personal story is how I see your approach to real estate is different. A lot of people look at real estate as like, wow, how quickly can I leave that W-2 job? And I know that your handle, of course, is the Networth nurse, which I swear has got to be just about the best handle out there. But as you mentioned, you are so much more than a nurse because you're really a healthcare leader. And maybe you'd like to talk a little bit about, your further ambitions in your current line of work.
Yeah, definitely. So, especially within healthcare, I noticed pretty early on that I just was like volunteering to help improve different workflows in our department. Or if something came up where there was a project and the charge nurse or manager needed help, like I was volunteering for it because I really wanted what was best for our department and our nurses and our patients. And so I was always very willing and able to take on these projects. And I didn't really even realize that I was becoming a leader as a nurse until one of my managers pulled me aside and was like, "Hey, like you're doing a great job. Like I'd love to pull you in as a charge nurse. Let's get you trained on it." And I was still a brand new nurse. And so I'm like, "What?" I didn't really realize that, especially in healthcare and other industries, not a lot of people are willing to move into that leadership role. A lot of people don't want to take the initiative to be a leader. And honestly, I mean, in healthcare, it is problem solving. I mean, that's really the biggest piece that sets me apart from staff nurses or my nurses that are doing my day-to-day work in the departments, is like, as the leader or even my charge nurses, they're the ones that are now in a role where they're solving problems, things that are coming up, because things come up all day that are unexpected, issues with doctors, issues with family members, patients, things just in the facility. So as problems arise, I've realized that I now, as I've moved into management, I have a team of nurses. Like my role in the hospital as a nurse leader is really to support my entire team. And that's by giving them resources, problem solving for them, giving what they need to do their job well.
Great. And one of the great things about entrepreneurship is it is a great proving ground for leadership. For you, you were very much a leader before you stepped into it. And I would like to hear more about leadership from you. Do you have any great advice or maybe some encouragement for people who are going out there as entrepreneurs, either as a leader for the first time or maybe a leader in a new field?
Yeah, oh my, so much. I could go on and on about this. I think one of the first things, like the foundation, is to never ask people to do what you aren't willing to do yourself. And I've worked myself into a lot of different roles in healthcare, and I've pushed myself into positions where I didn't necessarily know what I was doing or the specialty that I was in. And I learned from the ground up and learned from people who were experts in the field and came from a really humble position of learning the space and never asking anyone to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. And I think that's how I've gained so much traction and a following in my positions, is because my caregivers and my team know that at any moment I'm willing and able and ready to jump in and help them. And I offer it on a regular basis. I mean, if my one of my departments is super short staffed or they need something, I'm going over there, calling them and asking them what I can do to help, how I can jump in, even just transferring patients or moving patients, doing that sort of thing. So being able to lead by example is definitely like the foundation of being a good leader. And then I think one of the other components that I feel that I bring to the table is the ability to kind of see the big picture, especially as a leader and in operations. So what I do in healthcare is oversee operations. I have people come to me with problems or a new project, and they are only seeing it from their position. So if there's something going on in the unit and we're implementing a new project, the doctors are voicing their concerns with the project. The nurses are voicing their concerns, the techs, budget and financing their concerns, and everyone's kind of voicing their concerns from their point of view. And as a leader, you have to take all of those into consideration and see the big picture and make a judgment call based on all of the information, not one-sided information. So that's something I learned early on in my career, is that when someone's bringing me a problem, it's not maybe going with the first solution that comes to mind, but really just understanding the whole picture of what's going on and why there's a problem, and being able to solve it from a higher level as opposed to putting a band-aid on it. Because I think that's sometimes something you see a lot of places, is people will just band-aid issues. But for me, it's being able to see the whole picture. And it sometimes takes some digging to get there, but it always provides a better solution.
I love it. Lead by example and be a big picture thinker. Those are great things. And here's another great thing. I see that you are working with your husband. And I know a lot of people in real estate, they go it alone and it's frustrating. They want to involve the spouse. So maybe you could talk about that process. Were you always both on board, or was there a sort of a process of getting one or the other involved?
Yeah, definitely. So I got bit by the real estate bug first, but my husband just he's a very entrepreneurial mindset, very motivated. So it wasn't a hard sell for him, real estate. Like he had already read Rich Dad Poor Dad back in college. So he was aware of kind of the concept. And so when I was on maternity leave, having the time to start investigating and educating myself on it. And he'd come home from work and I'd start sharing with him what we could really do in the space. He was on board, and it really took us sitting down and getting specific on our why of like, hey, if we go full force into real estate, like what do we want our lives to look like in 5 years? Like, what do we want to wake up? Where do we want to wake up? What are we doing on a day to day? What conversations are we having with people? What are we working on? And it took sitting down together and visualizing that we have the same goals as a family. We have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. So we have a core family life that we're striving to create this financial freedom for. And so we have a very strong why with our family and the time flexibility that we want with our daughters. And so getting specific on that together as a core unit gave us the motivation and encouragement to go forward in this business side by side.
That's beautiful. And before we get deep into your career as a syndicator, I want to say a lot of our listeners may be interested in being a passive investor. And I noticed that that's one of the things that your website does very well. You are doing a very great job of explaining to people like what is a syndication, what to expect, how do you get into it. So why don't you just take us through that process? So suppose I'm like totally green. I heard that, apartment investing is great and I don't have to do all the work.
Yes, right. You're a prime candidate for a passive investment. So yeah, that was honestly something we learned after doing our first syndication deal. We did a small raise for our first raise. It was like about 200,000, and we realized that as we were talking to investors, we were having the same conversations over and over. Like people not understanding really what a syndication was, not understanding how the returns were working, how were they actually making their money. And I realized as I was having these conversations that I was referring people to other people's resources and materials and education stuff out there, which I mean, I still do as an operator because I always encourage my investors to seek out other education, not solely coming from me, but it motivated me to create educational material myself. So, I mean, one of the first things my husband and I did was we got someone on Fiverr to do a 5-minute doodle video, like explaining what a syndication is, because a lot of people were like, I don't even know what this is. And our 5-minute YouTube video literally draws out like how syndication works, how passive investors make their returns, what the deal looks like, the exit strategies, the projected returns. And so creating that educational material is so key for us. It allows our investors to come into our deal very well educated on how a syndication works, what they can expect as an investor, and it really makes the process easier for everyone involved. And so the Networth nurse was really launched in motivation to create this foundation of educational material. So now, conversations that I have, these are usually with medical professionals, nurses I work with. They're like, what are you doing in real estate? And I explain that a syndication is really an opportunity for people who want to invest in real estate to pool together their resources. So people can just throw capital at the deal, not have to do any of the work. And then there's people like myself and my husband who are more motivated to carry out the operations of a project like this. And basically we're going out, buying a property, apartment complex that has been mismanaged. We're buying it at a good price. We're going in and adding value to it. We're raising rents. We're decreasing expenses. We're doing things to manage and push the property to perform at its highest level. And most of the time we're finding these properties from kind of just maybe older owners. They've owned it a long time, have really pushed it to the back burner, haven't really pushed the property to its highest potential. And we're going in and doing that. And so we're getting, and then selling it in about 5 years. So it's kind of a long-term flipping strategy for these apartments. We're making amazing returns for our investors. And it gives the investors an opportunity to invest passively in these deals, not do any of the work, but still get amazing returns and tax benefits and great strategies just within real estate.
So that's wonderful. But the sticking point, I think, for most people is the funding sources. So a lot of people, if they have wealth at all, it's usually that 401k or an IRA. So can you tell us, how do you unlock that?
Yeah. And this is where it was so motivating for us to tap into those equity sources ourselves, because now we have personal experience when we go to investors and we're like, hey, we've pulled out a second mortgage on our home. We know how to do that. And we've put it into real estate. And this is what we're doing with that money. We've also pulled from our retirement account under the CARES Act. So during 2020, you were able to pull from your retirement penalty free. So that was like a huge, huge opportunity that unfortunately maybe a lot of people missed, but a lot of people jumped in on and were able to do that penalty free. You do have to pay taxes on that money, but over a 3-year period. So it was an amazing opportunity for people to get into their retirement account. So my husband did that. I missed the train on that. I thought it would kind of push a little bit further, but January 1st, they cut it off. And so then I pulled out a loan through my retirement account. I work with Fidelity through my employer, and I was able to pull out a $60,000 loan on my retirement for like 4.2%. Which now I'm using that and investing it in something that's making 15 to 20% returns. So now I'm paying back that loan and still getting all this extra money in my pocket every month. So same kind of concept with a second mortgage or pulling out a HELOC. Yes, you do have an extra payment that you didn't normally pay on that loan, but the returns that you're getting from real estate should cover that and still put money in your pocket every month. So really, when you look at it on paper, it becomes such a very strong strategy to grow wealth.
That's great. And so I want to back up a little bit. You did mention something about, well, when you are the passive investor, you have to understand the returns and how they're calculated. And if I'm not mistaken, in your deals, you are not generally giving a preferred rate of return. So I'd like you to explain that. I feel like that's generally standard. Why do your investors tend to, apparently they're looking obviously for more of the upside, but why is it that you tend to have no preferred?
Yeah, and that's just something we've done on our last 3 deals. We had a coach and mentor who didn't do those either. And so we really just went into our first couple projects not vetting, not putting that out for our investors. And they were such strong deals that it wasn't necessarily required for, I mean, our investors weren't looking for that because it was such a strong deal. I know that there are a lot of investors out there that only go for deals that do have that preferred return. So for anyone out there that doesn't know, preferred return is basically getting the returns to the investors before the general partnership team gets paid. So it's kind of a way for operators to quote unquote, like prove that their investors come first by offering them a preferred return. For us, we're still getting our investors our projected returns that we're quote unquote promising them. So it hasn't been an issue for us in our current deals. It is something that we're open to exploring in the future. But the amazing thing about these syndication deals is you can structure them so many different ways. And honestly, that's why we start with educating our investors on the returns, because then once they know how the returns work and how to calculate return on investment, average annualized return, cash on cash return, internal rate of return, when investors understand that, then they can go out and compare different investments and compare it to investing in single family homes or investing in Airbnbs, or how do I know which real estate strategy is the best one for me? Once you understand the returns, then you can go out there and make that judgment call for yourself.
That's great. And so I expected you to go to the educational angle, that if you bring people along for the process, that they are not going to worry as much about certain things. But also, I love it. Strong deals bring people in.
Yes.
There's fewer things to worry about. All right. Well, look, I do want to get into your syndications and your deals. But before we do that, I just say people are awesome. And the human element of anything is the most important. And people get into real estate because they want to live the life. And it looks like you and your husband are living the life. You actually get to spend 1 month a year in Hawaii. So tell us about that.
Yeah, well, that is our goal. So that's
Cool.
definitely one of our main reasons behind doing this. And we're hoping, I mean, we're gonna hit that in, I think, the next year for sure. But that was just such a driving force, because a lot of people, when you're thinking about your life and PTO, I mean, my husband and I work full-time jobs Monday through Friday. It was like how do we want to live our lives? And we're like, we want to be able to go and live in Hawaii for a month out of the year with our daughters and just hang out there and be able to work on our business from there. And so that was one of our big long-term goals, and we are working towards that. And through real estate and by investing in real estate, we will be able to achieve that and get to the point where we're able to take off and live in Hawaii for a month and be able to work on real estate full time.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And so you also complement your husband very well. I understand. I believe he's doing the acquisitions end of it, and you are obviously the personality out front that raises the money. Another reason why I think it's great to have a husband-wife team. You already complement yourself one another in social settings. So wow, I'm really getting my wife involved. She was actually the first interviewer on this show, and that got her showing this to her friends. Now she comes to my meetups in person. So for us, it was more of a process. So was that sort of a natural fit? I don't remember what your husband was doing. Is he the analytic type?
Yeah, so definitely it's really kind of a natural fit with our personalities. And when we did that first syndication deal, it was a 12 unit, kind of a smaller deal. We went through that deal side by side together for everything. We were on all the investor calls together, the lawyer calls, the broker calls, the lender calls. Like, we wanted to understand how the syndication works from start to end. And so we did that first deal together. And then after we did that deal, we got an opportunity to invest in our second deal pretty shortly after, like right away. And so we're like, okay, how can we split this up now? And originally I thought, because I'm in charge of operations in healthcare, I'm used to working with a lot of different people on big projects. I was like, okay, I'm going to do asset management. I really wanted to do it, drive the returns for the investors. And it took that first project of having calls with contractors and just trying to, I was like, I can't do that. I was like, I didn't have it in me. My husband is so patient. He is so great at communication and being able to do all that stuff. So I let him do that. And he is very much not wanting to be the face of the business or kind of have the calls with the investors, although he's very involved in the networking. His side of things, he did not want to be, the net worth nurse. And so that was my opportunity to come out and be kind of the brand building part of our business. I do all the marketing, all of our investor relations. So I'm having the calls with investors and kind of educating them and keeping them up to date on what our projects are doing. So it really did become a natural fit. Obviously, there's a lot of balance that goes into it, and working with your spouse on a business is a lot different than going into work and working with a manager. So there was some things we learned early on in terms of like how to communicate with each other, like give each other space to work on whatever each other is working on. And so we've created a good system. Yeah, we've had our bumps that we've crossed along the way, but we've kind of split it up and give each other kind of the respect and space to work on each side of the business and be able to come together and collaborate when we need to.
I love it. And just a few things I want to call out there. Your success story, I think, has shared elements. Everybody I know that works husband and wife, it's always you have your domain, you have your lane, and that's what makes it work. But more importantly, try everything, right? If you're new to multifamily, try everything. You'll find out what you like, find out where you can add value, and that's where you will find your partnership. If you're not lucky enough to have a spouse who's interested, that you can make your partner, just go out and meet people, find out where you can add value. So you did start to talk about some of your deals, and that's awesome. But one of the things I don't think you mentioned is that you live, I believe, in LA, but you have investments in multiple states, none in California. I think you've got Oregon, Nevada, and I think you've got single family homes in Atlanta. So tell us about what it took to build the confidence to be an out of state investor in multiple states like that.
Yeah, definitely. So when that you have to know your market. So for us, it was like, okay, Los Angeles, a higher price point to entry. We had a fixed amount of capital. We thought maybe we couldn't stretch it as much here in LA. So we were naturally seeking out different markets, doing a lot of research and studying. So when we're going and evaluating a market, we're looking at population trends, growth, rent growth, just overall expansion of the city, jobs, like what what industries are moving in there, tenant laws, landlord laws, vacancy rates. So we're going out and doing so much research when we're trying to establish ourselves in a market. We're calling brokers, talking to them about what they see going on, property managers, because you do, when you're investing out of state, you have to build a whole team over there. And so for us, it was really just having a lot of conversations and doing a lot of research ourselves. And I mean, so we have single family homes over in Atlanta. Like, we've never been to Atlanta. And I could tell you all the submarkets in Atlanta. I could tell you what employers are moving over there, vacancy rates, like rent growth. Like, we've done so much research on even just like Zillow, LoopNet, walking the streets on Google. So doing a lot of research gives you the confidence to invest in a market that you've never been to. And I mean, it's 2021, like the technology exists to be able to do that.
That's wonderful. And I just love all your local knowledge. There's actually two ways that I wanted to take that here. Let me kill this virtual background for a minute. You can see what I'm doing right behind me. I invest in Orlando. That's Orlando over there. Over here too. I mean, when you are out of state, you got to work all the time to know exactly what's going on there. I'm out in Orlando at least twice a year. Really, to tell the truth, I think it's been 4 times in the last 12 months. So that is huge. And the local knowledge. All right, here now I got to follow up on that. I think there's something really strange about Oregon. I believe that they have totally different property management fee structure out there. Can you explain that? I was
Yeah.
fascinated by that.
Definitely. So Oregon, I know I get so many questions about Oregon because no one invests over there, which is so funny because I hear that it is not a landlord friendly state, just like California. And so that was something that obviously we were concerned about too, because we hear that from people. And then it took us going over there. So I have family in Oregon. We know that market very well. We're up there pretty regularly to visit my parents. And we started talking to property managers, to brokers up there, and just it's a different markets have different numbers. And so understanding like there is rent control, but it's 9.1% for the year 2020. There's different moratoriums in place for the evictions, memorandums and all that stuff because of COVID. And we're very up to date on that. Our property management team is also very up to date on it and understanding the eviction laws. And so, especially when you're doing a business strategy and you're running numbers, underwriting a deal, you have to know vacancy rates. You have to know property management rates. I mean, our property management, we have 3 different property managers over there. They range in the percentages, but I mean, 5% is what we're giving to our property management team up there, which is really competitive. And that's really because that one is in a smaller market, and that property management teams just kind of monopolize that market. And they're an amazing team too. They do a really, really good job. So we're kind of finding little hidden gems up there because you don't hear a lot of big syndicators and operators go over there to be doing these big deals. And we have a broker that, I mean, we did all 3 deals with. So it just really goes to show that the relationships that you build, especially when you're investing out of state, really, really have to be strong. The communication has to be there. You have to have trust in your team. You have to have really just the understanding of the end picture of the common goal, and all of that work is really done up front.
I love it. Know your market, build relationships. Great lessons. What advice would you give your younger self?
Definitely. Okay. So probably not caring what other people think. So that was a huge hurdle that I had to get over when I launched my brand, the Networth Nurse. I think it can be easy to fall into the traps of listening to what other people say and taking it to heart, maybe a little bit too much. When I first started investing in real estate, I was joining masterminds and kind of going on bigger pockets and sharing with people kind of what we wanted to do. And there's always going to be naysayers. There's always going to be people that aren't on board with what you're doing or think what you're doing is too risky. I mean, honestly, my husband and I didn't really tell a lot of people we were taking out a second mortgage on our house to start investing, or that we were pulling from our retirement accounts, because we were nervous of what our friends and family would think. And we were very sure, and we educated ourselves so much and talked to we started shifting our conversations and started not taking financial advice. We started taking more financial advice from people who were at a place where we wanted to be. And they offer a lot different insight than maybe some people in your close knit circle of how they're kind of running their finances. And that was a huge kind of shifting point for us. And then also, the not caring what people think of just being able to go out as an entrepreneur, launch a brand. It can be very vulnerable going out there, especially on social media and recording videos of yourself and kind of sharing what you're doing, because people will always kind of go against what you're saying. I mean, like, so for example, I did a video of like pulling from my retirement account to get started in real estate investing. And I had someone respond to it of like, you shouldn't be giving that advice to people. If there's employers that are matching contributions, like, people need to be putting it in their retirement account. And it was just like, they took what I said completely out of context. Of course, if your employer is contributing, I still contribute 5% because my employer contributes 5%. Like, I didn't even touch on that in that short little like 2-minute video, but someone was already coming to me and saying that I was like giving bad advice. So it's kind of just like, you take it with a grain of salt and then, stay true to yourself and go out there. And I mean, my husband and I, just with our business in general, we come from a very transparent, genuine foundation. And that's really how we want to grow, even organically. Like, we don't want to go out there and say things that we don't do or be people that we're not. We're sharing with people what we're personally doing and what's working for us. And then it gives people kind of a better understanding of how it could maybe work for their lives.
Beautiful. And I got to say, one of the things I like best about business, it toughens your skin. You get over rejection really quickly. Doesn't matter what business you're in. All right. So, final question. I'll let you turn the tables. Do you have any questions for me, or is there anything else that you'd like to tell people about Savannah Arroyo, the Networth nurse?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question for you, I mean, you have this podcast specifically on leaders, and I know I've listened to some of the episodes, but what are you finding as a common trend of leaders? Like, what characteristic and trait do you feel that's popping out consistently on every episode?
So it's got to be grit. And I believe in grit. Determination is the number one factor in anyone's success, particularly in business. It's okay, I suppose, if you want to be a team member and you want somebody to tell you what to do all day long, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to go out and succeed in business, or you want to be a leader, you have to handle the rejection, and you absolutely have to stick to it. Then I think I'll send us out with my favorite quote from Winston Churchill, that success is going from one failure to another without the loss of enthusiasm.
I love it.
Savannah, I want to thank you for an amazing interview. How do people find you online?
Yes, I made it easy for everyone. So, the Networth Nurse. You can find me under the Networth Nurse on all social media handles. So that's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And my website's the Networth Nurse. I love connecting with other people in the real estate world. So if anything I've said has been remotely interesting, please reach out to me. I would love to connect.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Savannah.
Thank you.